The battle had been going on for hours. Space outside the human fleet shimmered with fire, wreckage, and dying ships. Captain Elias Ward sat strapped in his dropship, his jaw tight as the hull shuddered under enemy fire. The command voice came over the comms, calm but urgent. "Ward, you and your squad are cleared to board the Veyari warship. Plant the charges. Get out fast." "Yes, sir," Elias replied, his voice steady though his heart pounded. The dropship broke away from the human cruiser, weaving through debris. Through the small viewport, Elias saw the alien ship they were headed for. The Veyari vessel was massive, its sharp design like the skeleton of some giant predator. Its hull burned and pieces of its armor drifted like broken teeth. But it was still alive, still dangerous. The Veyari were humanity's greatest threat. Reptilian, cold-blooded and merciless in battle, they were known across the galaxy for never sparing an enemy. Every soldier in Elias's unit had been taught since training. Veyari are monsters. Kill them before they kill you. The dropship slammed against the Veyari hull with a loud metallic bang. The soldiers rushed out, mag boots clamping to the surface. Sparks flew as cutting torches sliced a hole into the alien ship. Elias went first, blaster in hand. Inside was chaos. The corridors smelled of burnt metal and strange alien fluids. Sparks rained from ruptured conduits, and the walls shook with distant explosions. Somewhere deeper in the ship, alien voices hissed and shouted. "Move fast," Elias ordered. His men split into pairs, planting charges along structural points. But something was wrong. The ship didn't feel like a fortress anymore, it felt like a dying beast. The sounds weren't only soldiers shouting. There were cries. High-pitched, frightened cries that echoed strangely down the metallic halls. Elias froze. His instincts told him to ignore it. This was the enemy. This was war. But the sound tugged at him, cutting through years of training and hate. "Captain?" one of his soldiers asked. "What's wrong?" "Cover me," Elias said. Without waiting for permission, he followed the sound. The cries grew louder as he turned a corner and entered a chamber. The room had once been elegant by alien standards. Strange carved walls, glowing light strips, seats designed for non-human forms. But now it was a wreck. A beam had collapsed from the ceiling, sparks showering the floor. Underneath it, something moved. Elias stepped closer, weapon raised. And then he saw it, a child small, scaled, with large golden eyes wide with terror. A Veyari hatchling, maybe no older than 5 human years. Its tiny claws scratched weakly against the metal beam pinning its legs. The child looked up at him, trembling. It expected death. Elias stood frozen. His mind screamed at him, "This is the enemy, finish the mission." Yet his heart clenched. He thought of Earth, of his younger sister back home, of the times he had carried her out of danger during storms. This wasn't a monster. This was a scared child alone in the fire. The child whimpered. Elias dropped his blaster. "Hang on, kid," he muttered, moving to the wreckage. The metal beam was heavy, fused with melted edges. He braced himself, pushing with all his strength. His arms shook. The child cried louder, struggling to move. Finally, with a groan of effort, Elias lifted the beam just enough for the hatchling to slip free. It scrambled into a corner, watching him with wide, distrustful eyes. Elias breathed hard, sweat dripping down his forehead inside the helmet. He crouched low, keeping his voice calm. "You're safe now. I won't hurt you." The alien child tilted its head, confused by the tone. Slowly, hesitantly, it moved closer and clutched at his arm. Its scales were warm, trembling. Elias felt something strange stir in his chest. Suddenly, his comms crackled. "Captain Ward, report. Charges are almost set." Elias looked down at the child, then back at the blinking comm. "I found a survivor," he said carefully. "Survivor? Leave it, that's the enemy." "Complete the mission!" He muted the channel. His soldiers would be furious, but he couldn't, not this time. He scooped the child into his arms. The little creature clung to him, wrapping tiny claws into his armor plates. The ship shook violently as another blast hit. Elias ran back toward the breach. Smoke filled the corridors, lights flickered, and he heard the hissing voices of Veyari soldiers ahead. He turned down another hall, clutching the child tighter. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I'll get you out." When he reached the breach, his squad stared in disbelief. "Captain..." "What the hell is that?" one soldier barked, pointing at the child in his arms. Elias ignored the shock. "Back to the dropship now." They hesitated, but followed. The dropship's doors closed just as another explosion tore through the alien vessel. Elias strapped in, the child still against his chest. As they detached, the human fleet and the Veyari fleet both paused. The battle faltered. Every war drone, every camera, every eye on both sides watched the same feed. The human soldier carrying an enemy child out of the flames. It was broadcast across the fleets in real time. Commanders froze. Soldiers stared. Whispers rippled like waves. Some humans cursed Elias as a fool, calling him a traitor. Others, even hardened veterans, felt their throats tighten. And among the Veyari, confusion spread. Why would a human, an enemy, a deathworlder, save one of their young? In the dropship, the child nestled against Elias, too tired to cry anymore. For the first time it seemed calm. Elias looked down at the small, scaled face and exhaled slowly. He didn't know what punishment awaited him. He didn't know if command would court-martial him, or if the Veyari would see this as some kind of insult. But none of it mattered right now, because in the middle of war, surrounded by hate and fire, he had remembered something simple. A child is not the enemy. The dropship shuddered as it re-entered human space. Smoke still trailed from the Veyari vessel behind them, burning in the void like a dying star. Inside, Captain Elias Ward held the small alien child tightly, its tiny claws gripping his armor. The child's golden eyes, wide and fearful at first, now watched him cautiously, as if trying to understand the strange human who had saved it. Elias didn't speak much. Words seemed useless. He only whispered softly, trying to calm the child. "It's okay. You're safe now." The ship landed on the human carrier with a loud thud. Soldiers rushed to secure the perimeter, scanning the area for any stragglers or threats. Command officers met Elias at the hangar bay, their faces a mixture of surprise and suspicion. "Captain Ward," Commander Ryla called, striding forward. Her boots clanged against the metal floor. "What in the galaxy is that?" Elias turned to her, still cradling the hatchling. "A child. One of theirs. Trapped under the wreckage. I saved it." Ryla's eyes widened, disbelief etched in her features. "You saved a Veyari? You know what this means, don't you? You put yourself at risk. And all of us." "That ship was still alive." "I know," Elias said firmly. "But I couldn't leave it. It's just a child. It didn't attack me. It didn't deserve to die." Behind her, other officers whispered nervously. Some shook their heads, calling him reckless. Others looked at him with awe. Few humans had ever risked their life for the enemy. Fewer still had done so for a child. "We'll have to contain it," Ryla said slowly after a moment of tense silence. "Isolation, observation, and report to command. This could start a political incident." Elias nodded, though he didn't loosen his hold on the hatchling. He understood the weight of what he had done. In the middle of a brutal war, a single act of mercy could ripple through both sides in ways no one could predict. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy on the Veyari homeworld, Lady Saraki paced in her private chamber. The high-ranking matriarch had received reports of the battle from her war council. Her mind, sharp and calculating, focused not on the loss of ships but on one detail. Her child had survived. Survival was unexpected. Veyari forces had been trained to retrieve their young, but the situation had been chaotic. Now the news was worse or stranger. The child had been saved. By a human. Saraki's eyes narrowed as she studied the hollow feet of the battle. The small human figure carrying her child through the wreckage moved with courage she had never seen in enemy soldiers. He risked his life, ignored protocol, and acted purely to protect her offspring. For the first time in her life, Lady Saraki felt a strange, unfamiliar emotion. Gratitude, yes, but something else too. Curiosity, respect, even admiration. Her advisors, sensing her attention, spoke cautiously. "Mother Saraki, this human. It is an insult. We must strike at once. He is the enemy." Saraki's gaze did not waver. "No," she said firmly. "He did not attack. He did not kill. He saved what is precious. That is unusual. I must know more about him," the Veyari Council murmured among themselves. Unusual? Gratitude? Admiration? Such thoughts were dangerous, alien even to their kind. But Saraki did not care. Her child had survived, and the human responsible had proven something extraordinary. Back on the human carrier, the hatchling slowly relaxed in Elias's arms. It sniffled, blinking at the bright lights and strange shapes around it. A translator device attached to its small neck emitted soft clicks and hums. Elias pressed a button hoping to communicate. "Can you understand me?" he asked gently. The device translated his words into the Veyari tongue, The child tilted its head, then whispered a series of clicks. The translator rendered it roughly. You, save me. Why? Elias smiled faintly, stroking the small head. Because no child deserves to die. Not yours, not mine, not anyone's. The hatchling hesitated, then wrapped a tiny arm around his neck. The gesture was simple, but the meaning was profound. Trust. News of Elias's actions spread quickly. Fleet communications, social media channels, and military chatter all buzzed with the image of a human soldier saving the enemy's child. Humans debated whether he was a fool or a hero. Veyari forces debated whether he was a threat or something even stranger, a human capable of honor. Days passed. The child remained under human protection, growing attached to Elias. He named it Kyle after a human childhood friend, hoping the familiarity might help bridge the divide. Kale's golden eyes followed him everywhere, and it began to mimic simple human words and gestures. But the human command was not pleased. They demanded reports, explanations, and ultimately answers. Elias found himself sitting in front of the top brass, facing stern eyes and pointed questions. Captain Ward, Commander Ryla said, leaning forward, explain why you risked your life for an enemy child. Do you understand the consequences of your actions? The political fallout? The potential for retaliation? I understand, Elias replied. But the child did nothing wrong. Saving Kale does not betray humanity. It honors something far older than war, life itself. I won't regret it. There was a long silence. Some officers frowned. Others exchanged uneasy glances. A few younger soldiers shifted in admiration. Elias held his ground. Very well, Ryla said finally. For now, the child will remain under observation. But Captain Ward, any more reckless decisions like this and you answer for them. Understood? Elias nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. His concern was not punishment or protocol. His concern was Kale's safety and what this act of mercy might mean for the galaxy. On the Veyari side, Lady Sarakai made her move. She sent discreet messages through secure channels, requesting that the human responsible be allowed to live. Her words were precise, measured, but carried weight. The one who saved my child has proven his worth. I wish to see him. The request shocked both sides. Veyari counselors whispered of treachery. Humans were suspicious. Why would the alien matriarch seek contact with a human soldier? But the military had little choice. The act itself had become a symbol of hope, a rare moment where humanity's courage and compassion were visible even to their enemies. Refusing could escalate tensions unnecessarily. Elias spent nights in quiet contemplation, sitting with Kale in the observation bay. Stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's viewport. He wondered what Kale saw when he looked at him. Did the child see a savior? A stranger? A friend? Kale reached up and touched Elias's face with a small, scaled hand. Elias laughed softly. You're braver than I expected, he said. I never thought an alien child would trust me so quickly. Kale made a series of soft sounds, which the translator rendered as, I like you. Elias smiled, feeling warmth he hadn't expected. In the middle of war, amidst chaos and death, a bond had formed. A fragile, delicate bond that transcended species, language, and fear. He knew it was dangerous. Humans and Veyari alike would judge him. They would try to control him, question him, perhaps even punish him. Yet Elias also knew that this child, Kyle, was proof that compassion could exist even in the darkest places. And far away, on the Veyari homeworld, Lady Sarakai watched. Her golden eyes lingered on the feed showing Elias and Kale together. The child's small hand on the human's chest, the way Elias spoke softly, the protective stance he took, it all spoke volumes. Something in her stirred. It was not just gratitude, it was admiration, perhaps even desire. The thought startled her, for no Veyari ever felt such interest toward an enemy human. And yet she could not ignore it. Perhaps this human is different, she murmured to herself. Perhaps he is more than a soldier. Perhaps he is. Something I have never met before. The war continued outside their immediate view, but within the small bubble of observation, a seed of understanding had been planted. A human had risked everything for a Veyari child, and now, the impossible was beginning. The enemy was no longer merely an enemy. Elias did not know what would come next. The Veyari would react. His own command would react. But he also knew one thing with certainty. He would protect Kale with his life. No orders, no politics, and no war could change that. The human fleet and the Veyari armada remained tense, hovering on the edge of another war. Both sides had watched Elias Ward's actions carefully. The footage of him carrying Kale replayed countless times across battle screens and comms. It had caused whispers in every corner of both civilizations, some of awe, others of fear, and a few of contempt. Elias had been summoned to a special diplomatic meeting. The human command insisted he attend, not as a soldier but as a symbol of what humanity could offer. The Veyari, for their part, demanded he be presented safely to Lady SCIFI herself. The idea of him walking into enemy territory, unarmed but under guard, was unsettling to many, yet necessary. As the shuttle approached the Veyari flagship, Elias felt a tight knot in his chest. He had spent months training for war, for battles, for survival, but never for something like this. Here in enemy space, nothing was predictable. Every step, every gesture could be misread. And yet he carried Kale, the small alien hatchling, close to him, its warm weight a strange comfort against his chest. The shuttle doors hissed open. The chamber inside was vast, lit with golden light that reflected off the alien walls. SCIFI's council waited, their scales glinting, eyes sharp and calculating. Lady SCIFI herself stood at the center, taller than most Veyari, her eyes fixed on Elias with intensity. Elias stepped forward, careful to keep Kyle secure. He spoke slowly, choosing words that would not provoke. "I am here to meet Lady SCIFI, and to ensure the safety of her child." The room fell silent. All eyes watched him. Then Lady SCIFI spoke, her voice smooth but commanding. "You are the human who saved my hatchling," she said, her golden eyes sharp. "Tell me, why?" Elias hesitated only a moment. He had answered this question countless times in his mind, yet the weight of it in this moment was different. He looked directly at her. "Because a child is not an enemy. Not yours, not mine, not anyone's. I could not stand by and let Kale die. That is all." A faint flicker of surprise crossed SCIFI's face. No human had ever answered a Veyari matriarch so directly with such honesty. It was not fear, not diplomacy, not cunning, just truth. For a long moment, the chamber was quiet except for the small clicks and hums from Kyle, who clung to Elias. The child's eyes shifted between the human and its mother, as if it understood that something extraordinary was happening. Finally, SCIFI's lips curved into a subtle, almost imperceptible smile. "Few humans have such honor. You could have killed my child and left as any soldier would, but you did not." Elias inclined his head, still cautious. "I only did what I thought was right." "You are unusual," SCIFI said softly, her eyes holding his. "I wish to know more about you." The words hung in the air like a spark. Her counselor shifted uneasily. To be intrigued by a human, to even consider that curiosity, was dangerous. Yet SCIFI ignored them. She had spent a lifetime commanding armies, navigating politics, and ensuring the survival of her people. But this human had touched something she could not name. Over the following days, Elias remained aboard the Veyari flagship under guarded observation. The Veyari were curious, cautious, and suspicious, but they could not deny the bravery he had shown. Kale, meanwhile, became more comfortable with the alien surroundings, though it never strayed from Elias's side. The first formal meeting between Elias and SCIFI was arranged in a private chamber. The walls glowed softly, the air humming with alien energy. Kale sat on a soft pedestal, watching both figures closely. "Why do you value life so much?" SCIFI asked, her voice almost conversational. "You risked everything for one hatchling, while your people wage war across the stars." Elias considered this. "Because life is fragile. Every species, every child, every person has value. And sometimes, doing the right thing is more important than following orders." SCIFI's eyes softened, and for the first time, she allowed herself a small measure of vulnerability. "It is rare to hear such words from your kind. Most speak of conquest, of victory, of survival. Few speak of mercy." "I learned it from home," Elias said quietly. "From people who taught me to care for others even in the darkest times. Even when it's hard." Kale tilted its head, studying him. The translator rendered soft clicks. "I like him." Elias chuckled and rubbed the child's head. "I like you too, Kale." There was a pause, a fragile moment of understanding that crossed species, language, and prejudice. SCIFI watched silently, her thoughts churning. She had never imagined that a human could inspire such feelings, not only respect but curiosity, even something deeper. Yet the world outside the chambers remained dangerous. Both sides had extremists who viewed any kindness as weakness. Rumors circulated, a human and Vayari hatchling together, a matriarch intrigued by the same human. It was a story that could spark anger, jealousy, or worse. One evening, as Elias practiced basic movements with Kale under the watch of a single guard, Sarakai entered unannounced. She observed them quietly for several minutes, her golden eyes thoughtful. Elias noticed her presence and straightened. "Lady Sarakai," he said politely, "you should not enter without notice." Her lips curved faintly. "And miss seeing how you care for my child?" "No, I wish to see it for myself." Kale reached out and touched her scaled hand. It was tentative, curious. The translator clicked softly. "Mother. Stranger is friend." Sarakai's eyes softened further and she allowed herself a rare, gentle smile. "Yes," she said. "Perhaps he is. A friend." For Elias, it was a small, quiet victory. Trust was rare between humans and Vayari. But here, in this tiny room, it had begun to take root. And with trust came something else, understanding. Perhaps even alliance-diplomatic talks began formally the next day. Elias was seated alongside human and Vayari representatives, acting as a symbol of what humanity could offer. His presence was unsettling to many. He was neither diplomat nor warrior in the traditional sense, yet he commanded attention simply by being the man who had saved Kyle. Lady Sarakai spoke first. Her voice carried authority but also a hint of warmth. "We have seen proof of a human who values life, one who acted with honor in the face of danger. Let it be known, such courage deserves recognition and perhaps peace." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Human diplomats whispered to one another. Vayari counselors exchanged shocked glances. But Sarakai's gaze never left Elias. There was something in his posture, his eyes, his simple honesty that had captivated her. Elias felt the weight of the moment. He had never sought recognition, never wanted power. But he understood that this act, this single gesture of mercy, had altered the course of the meeting. It had shifted the dialogue from war to possibility. Days turned into weeks. Kale grew more confident, exploring small areas of the flagship under watchful eyes. Elias taught it simple words, simple gestures. In return, Kyle shared clicks and hums, conveying thoughts that only a human heart could begin to understand. Sarakai visited them often, her presence a mix of supervision and fascination. She had never felt such an unpredictable pull toward anyone, least of all a human. Elias, cautious yet respectful, noticed the subtle glances, the slight curiosity in her tone, but he did not speak of it. He focused on Kale, on diplomacy, on the fragile hope that this bond might prevent another war. Yet tensions remained. Not all Vayari accepted the matriarch's fascination with Elias. Some whispered of weakness, of betrayal. Not all humans trusted Elias, fearing the alien's influence over him. The shuttle corridors and meeting rooms became a web of politics and careful steps. Each person watching, judging, anticipating missteps. One night, Elias sat alone in the observation bay, Kale asleep against him. Stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport. He thought of Earth, of the battles he had fought, of the friends he had lost. And he thought of the strange turn of events that had brought him here, in the heart of enemy space, carrying a child who was supposed to be his enemy. A soft click sounded. Sarakai stood at the entrance, her posture deliberate, her gaze steady. Elias looked up, startled but composed. "You think too much," she said softly. "You worry about politics, war, opinions. But you have done what is right. That is enough." Elias blinked, unsure how to respond. I don't know what comes next. I didn't expect any of this." Sarakai moved closer, her presence commanding yet strangely comforting. "Neither did I," she admitted. "Yet here we are, and you carry a weight not just of duty but of choice. That is rare, that is admirable." Elias felt a warmth he had not expected. It was not fear, nor confusion, nor relief. It was something entirely new. Respect, understanding, perhaps even connection. Kyle stirred, murmuring softly. Elias smiled down at the small creature, then looked back at Sarakai. The room was quiet, save for the hum of the ship and the soft breathing of a child who had survived against all odds. For the first time, Elias understood something vital. Trust could exist between enemies. Bonds could be formed in the midst of war, and sometimes courage and compassion could change not just a single life, but the destiny of many, and in that quiet moment, he saw it in Sarakai's eyes. The first spark of recognition that a human could inspire not only respect, but fascination, even desire. The war outside had not ended. Battles would rage. Extremists would plot. And the galaxy would continue to test them all. But in this small chamber with Kale safe and the unlikely bond forming between human and Vayari, something extraordinary had begun. The galaxy was quiet for only a moment. Peace talks between humans and the Vayari were fragile, held together by fragile trust and the extraordinary act of a single human soldier. Captain Elias Ward had thought that carrying Kale to safety would be the hardest thing he'd ever do. But the galaxy had more tests in store. Elias woke early that morning on the Vayari flagship, the weight of Kyle sleeping against his chest, still a comforting anchor. The child's breathing was soft and even, but the tiny fingers curled around his armor reminded him how vulnerable they both were. Outside, the flagship hummed with alien energy. Somewhere in the corridors, humans and Vayari plotted, each wary of the other. He had barely stepped out of his quarters when a low alarm sounded. Red lights flashed, casting the chamber in harsh, warning hues. Guards rushed past, their claws clicking against metal floors. Elias's stomach tightened. Danger had come fast, silent and precise. He sprinted down the corridor, Kyle tucked safely against him. Soldiers shouted orders, and in the distance the telltale signs of an attack. Security drones sparking, doors failing, alarms screaming. Someone had infiltrated the flagship. Elias skidded into the observation bay. Lady Sarakai was already there, her golden eyes wide with anger and disbelief. "They found us," she said, her voice sharp. "Assassins. Someone plans to kill my child, and they would blame you." Elias's pulse raced. His mind raced through possibilities. Humans or Vayari extremists? It could be anyone. Anyone who viewed mercy, compassion, or alliances as weakness. Whoever it was, they had come with deadly intent. "Get Kale out," he said firmly, scanning the bay. "Now." Sarakai hesitated for a split second, then nodded. Her hand brushed against the child's scaled head. "Go, Elias, protect him. I will hold them off." Elias bolted, sprinting through corridors, dodging sparks and flying debris. Blaster fire streaked past, some shots hitting walls, some narrowly missing him. Kale whimpered but did not cry. The child trusted him. That trust had to be repaid with action, without hesitation. They reached a secondary shuttle bay. Elias quickly prepared a small vessel. It wasn't armed, but it could move fast. Kale climbed in beside him, the child's eyes wide and alert. "It's okay," Elias said softly. "I've got you." The alarms grew louder. The sound of clawed footsteps and the hiss of Vayari extremists echoed through the corridors. Elias's chest tightened. He could hear Sarakai's voice over the emergency comms, directing guards, ordering countermeasures. Her presence, even in absence, gave him strength. The shuttle lifted, shaking violently as explosions rocked the flagship. Elias fired the thrusters and leapt into space, narrowly avoiding a collapsing hull section. Behind him, the flagship shimmered and sparked, wounded but still alive. As they drifted into open space, Elias allowed himself a brief moment to breathe. Kyle nestled against him, trembling but safe. The small alien's eyes blinked up at him, conveying silent gratitude. Elias smiled despite the danger. "We're not out of this yet," he whispered. Back on the flagship, Lady Sarakai moved like a force of nature. She commanded security units with precision, her presence both terrifying and mesmerizing. The extremists were skilled but unprepared for her strategy and ruthlessness. Every strike they attempted was countered. Every path they tried to take to reach Kyle was blocked. Yet even as she fought, her thoughts were with Elias. That human had risked everything for her child, not for glory, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. Her admiration deepened, mingling with something she could not fully name. "Mother," one of her advisors hissed, "you cannot hold them alone. You must withdraw." Sarakai's golden eyes flashed. "I will not abandon him. Not my child. Not the human who saved him. If they wish to die, let them try." Her words carried weight. The extremists faltered, their confidence shaken by the intensity of her resolve. And somewhere deep inside, Sarakai realized something dangerous. She wanted Elias alive, unscathed, even more than her child. That realization startled her. She had never felt such desire, Never for a human, never for anyone outside her own species. Elias piloted the shuttle toward a remote asteroid field. There, he could hide, regroup, and plan his next move. Kale clung to him, exhausted but alert. "Stay close," he said, scanning the instruments. "We need cover. We need time." The asteroid field offered jagged rocks and shadows, perfect for evasion. Elias maneuvered carefully, using the terrain to block sensors and avoid patrolling enemy vessels. Behind him, VRE shuttles tried to follow, but he was fast, precise, and relentless. After hours of tense navigation, Elias finally found a secluded cave on a massive asteroid. He landed the shuttle inside, the engines cutting off to silence. Kale curled up beside him, fatigue overtaking fear. Elias allowed himself a moment to breathe, rubbing the child's scaled back. "You're safe, for now," he whispered. "I promise." The quiet lasted only a few minutes before his comm crackled. Sarakai's voice came through, steady and commanding. "Elias, a report. Are you safe?" "We're hiding in an asteroid cave. They're trying to track us, but we're safe. For now," he replied. "Good," she said, her voice softening slightly. "Stay hidden. I will handle the rest." Elias frowned. "Sarakai, why do you care so much about a human soldier?" Her reply was long and silent, almost a hesitation. Then finally, "Because he saved my child. Because he is unlike any human I have ever known, and because I want him alive." The words hit Elias with a jolt. Desire, admiration, something deeper than mere gratitude, it was clear in her tone. But there was no time to dwell on it. Danger still loomed. Meanwhile, the extremists regrouped. Their leader, a Veiri commander named Zareth, hissed in frustration as his plans were thwarted repeatedly by Sarakai's strategy. "The hatchling must die," he snarled. "And the human. He must die with it. Only then can we reclaim honor." His officers hesitated, fearful of Sarakai's wrath, but Zareth was relentless. "We will not fail again. Prepare the fleet. No mercy, no hesitation. Find the human and kill him." Unknown to Zareth, his every move was being tracked. Sarakai anticipated his plans, laying traps and misinformation that would isolate him from support. The extremists were bold but arrogant. That arrogance would be their undoing. Days passed in tense hiding. Elias trained Kale in simple survival skills: how to stay hidden, how to move quietly, and how to observe the surroundings. The child's natural instincts were sharp, and under Elias's guidance, Kale became surprisingly resourceful. At night, Elias sat against the shuttle, staring out into the stars. His thoughts drifted to Sarakai, to the strange bond forming across enemy lines, and to the uncertainty of what would come next. "You're strong," he whispered to Kale. "But one day, you'll have to choose. The galaxy won't wait forever, and neither will your people." Kale clicked softly, the translator interpreting. "I trust you. Human." That trust was a fragile, precious thing. Elias understood its weight. One wrong move, one failure, and Kale could be lost. The thought sharpened his focus, hardened his resolve. He would not fail. Not now. Not ever. Back on the Veiri flagship, Sarakai consolidated power. She moved like a shadow, striking down extremists, securing loyal units, and ensuring that Kale's enemies had no path to victory. But her thoughts often strayed to Elias, brave, reckless, stubborn Elias, the human who had risked everything for life and honor. Something she had never felt before stirred within her. Concern, admiration, fascination, desire, all mixed together in a dangerous, irresistible combination. Her advisors whispered warnings. "Mother, do not allow personal feelings to cloud judgment." Sarakai's golden eyes flashed. "I do not allow. But I do not ignore courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. And that human embodies all three." The climax of the infiltration came suddenly. Zareth launched a final assault on the asteroid hideout, where Elias and Kale were hiding. Small fighter ships moved swiftly, scanning for heat signatures. Elias prepared, weapons ready, heart pounding. "Kale, stay close," he said. "We fight if we must, but we survive no matter what." The enemy ships approached, sleek and deadly, unaware of the traps Elias had set. Using quick maneuvers and clever positioning among the asteroids, he avoided most of the enemy fire. A few shots hit the shuttle, but it held. Then, just as an enemy fighter moved in for the kill, a wave of energy pulsed through the area. Sarakai had arrived with reinforcements. Her ships cut through the attackers, precise and devastating. Zareth hissed in frustration. retreating, realizing he had been outmaneuvered. Elias exhaled, relief washing over him. Kyle clung to him, whispering soft clicks of gratitude. "You see," Elias said quietly, "we survive. Together." And somewhere in the void, SciFi watched, golden eyes glowing with admiration. And something else entirely. The human had survived against impossible odds, not through strength alone but through courage, heart, and the unyielding refusal to abandon life. For Elias, the events of the past days had been terrifying, exhausting, and harrowing. But they had also proven something vital. Humanity's courage could withstand betrayal, deception, and violence. And sometimes that courage could inspire even the most powerful of enemies. As Elias sat with Kyle, staring at the distant stars, he realized the galaxy had changed, not yet at peace, but subtly, irrevocably, because of one human and one choice. The galaxy had never felt so tense and so fragile. The attack on the asteroid hideout, the betrayal by extremists, and the courage Elias Ward had shown had shifted the tides in ways no one could have predicted. Peace was now possible, but it remained delicate, balanced on acts of bravery and understanding that few could match. Elias sat in the observation bay of a Veyari cruiser, Kale asleep beside him. The small hatchling had grown confident, its golden eyes now bright and curious. Elias rubbed the child's scaled head, marveling at how resilient life could be, even in the middle of a galaxy at war. A comm signal blinked. Elias glanced at it and pressed the button. Lady Sarakai's voice filled the room, calm, firm, yet carrying a hint of warmth. "Captain Ward," she said, "the peace talks are ready to begin. Your presence is requested, and I wish to speak with you privately afterward." Elias's pulse quickened. After all that had happened, the battles, the betrayals, the risks, this was the moment where everything could change. "I'm ready," he said softly, pressing Kale's small hand against his chest. "Let's hope the galaxy is ready too." The peace chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from humans, Veyari, and neutral observers from other species. The room hummed with tension. Soldiers, diplomats, and politicians exchanged wary glances. Some doubted Elias's presence, fearing his influence on Sarakai might compromise negotiations. Others believed the human who saved a child could inspire trust. Sarakai stood at the front, commanding the room with poise. She addressed the assembly, her voice carrying authority that silenced the murmurs. "This is not merely a meeting," she said. "It is proof that courage, honor, and compassion can transcend war. One human chose to protect life instead of destroy it. That act has changed our perspective." She gestured toward Elias. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of countless eyes on him. He remained calm, focusing not on glory but on truth. "War is easy," he said, his voice steady. "Courage is tested when no one is watching. Mercy is hardest when it is most needed. I saved a child because it was the right thing to do. And if we can choose life over hate, then perhaps peace is possible." There was a long, tense silence. Then slowly, representatives began to nod. Some smiled cautiously. Some whispered among themselves. The human and Veyari eyes that had once been enemies now shared a flicker of understanding. Kyle stirred beside Elias, and the small hatchling's eyes blinked up at him. The child had been the spark that started this fragile hope. And in that glance, Elias saw the proof. Even in the cold expanse of space, one small act of compassion could ripple outward to change entire civilizations. After the session ended, Sarakai requested a private meeting. Elias followed her into a quiet chamber aboard the flagship. The soft golden light bathed the room, and Kale settled onto a soft cushion, watching them silently. Sarakai's gaze was steady, golden eyes holding his. "You've done more than I expected," she said. "Not just for my child, but for the possibility of peace. You have proven your worth." Elias inclined his head. "I only did what I thought was right." "That's all?" "No," Sarakai replied, stepping closer. "It is more than that. Your courage, your compassion. They are qualities rare even among my own people, and I desire you." The word stunned him. Desire. From the alien matriarch he had expected only hostility. The thought that she, Sarakai, could feel such fascination for him was overwhelming, yet not frightening. There was respect there, recognition of who he was, not just what he represented. Elias swallowed, steadying himself. "I don't know what to say." Say nothing, she said softly. Actions speak louder than words. You have proven who you are through them. That is enough. He looked at Kyle, asleep but peaceful, and then back at Sarah. Somehow, in the midst of war, betrayal, and fear, a bond had formed, a bond between human and alien, forged through courage and shared responsibility. Over the following days, the peace agreement took shape. The extremists on both sides were exposed and neutralized. Human and Vayari representatives worked together, finding compromise and understanding. Elias remained close to Kale, teaching, protecting, and guiding. While Sarah oversaw negotiations, her admiration for the human soldier deepening each day. One evening, Sarah invited Elias to the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent walls of the cruiser, glittering like scattered diamonds in the void. Kale was asleep in a nearby room, giving them privacy. Elias, she said, her voice quiet but intense, you have changed the course of this war. But more than that, you have changed something in me. I never thought I could feel this way for a human, and yet, here we are. Elias met her gaze, feeling a strange warmth. I never expected this either, he admitted. But I feel it too. Somehow, despite everything. I trust you. I respect you. And I care. Sarah stepped closer. Then let us see where this trust leads. Not as enemies, not as soldiers, but as something else. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the stars and the quiet hum of the ship surrounded them. Elias felt a connection, profound and undeniable, that crossed species, language, and the prejudices of the galaxy. Days later, the final ceremony was held to mark the peace treaty. Humans and Vayari gathered, witnessing what once seemed impossible. Former enemies shaking hands, signing agreements, and sharing cautious smiles. Elias and Sarah stood together, a symbol of cooperation and understanding. Kale ran between their feet, chirping happily, the embodiment of hope and unity. Representatives from other species watched with astonishment. They had heard stories of human courage, of DEATHWORLDers who thrived in impossible conditions. But to see such courage combined with compassion was inspiring. Humanity had not merely survived, it had become a beacon of hope and example to the galaxy. Elias glanced at Sarah, her hand brushing against his. He understood fully now. Courage and honor had not only saved a child, they had saved the future of two species. And perhaps in the process something personal and extraordinary had been born. Later, in the quiet of the flagship, Sarah approached Elias privately. You have my gratitude, she said softly. And more than gratitude, my admiration. I desire you not as a soldier, not as a symbol, but as a person. Will you walk beside me? Elias looked down at Kale, then back at Sarah. He thought of the battles fought, the lives saved, and the courage it took to act according to one's conscience. And he understood that this moment was not about rank, duty, or expectation. It was about connection, trust, and the rare courage to care. I will, he said finally. I will walk beside you, and we will protect Kale and each other as best we can. Sarah's golden eyes softened, and she reached out, holding his hand. For the first time in years, Elias felt a calm certainty, no longer defined solely by battle, survival, or war, but by choice, honor, and human compassion. The galaxy had not changed completely. There were still conflicts, still extremists, still dangers, but something fundamental had shifted. One human soldier had proven that courage and compassion could cross species, unite enemies, and inspire hope. Humanity had not only survived, it had become a force of light in the darkness. Elias stood beside Sarah on the observation deck, Kale between them, watching stars drift past. He felt the warmth of life, loyalty, and trust, a warmth that could never be extinguished no matter the wars to come. Somewhere in the depths of space, the future stretched out before them. It was uncertain, yes, but for the first time it was also full of possibility.